express my gratitude to the dynamo, who is the American University president, Margie Ensign, not only for hosting today's town hall, but also, of course, above all, for the work that this university is doing in the community of Yola and beyond under her leadership. So let's give her a round of applause. I think what you all have done here is really a model for how universities in not only Nigeria but all around the world can wade into some of the most complex and seemingly intractable challenges facing their communities. It's also a model for how you shape a rising generation of leaders. I want to stress the United States stands with Nigeria, and we will support you as you defeat Boko Haram. We will also support you as you promote not only the security, but the dignity and prosperity of people in the region. And I'd just like to discuss 3 more steps that I think we need to take together. 3 more ingredients that are key to ending the scourge of Boko Haram. First, and again, all of you know this, we need a humanitarian response that is commensurate with the scale of the current crisis. You all know the numbers, you live the numbers. The violence has killed thousands and displaced more than 2.5 million people here. In Nigeria, it is estimated that more than 90% of those displaced by Boko Haram are living with relatives and friends. Think about that. It is hard to imagine a greater testament to the hearts of the Nigerian people, to the generosity of the Nigerian people, than the fact that so many have opened their homes to those who have been uprooted. This is a really unusual phenomenon of having 90% of the displaced sheltered by other families. At the same time, this statistic also shows the ripple effect of the violence and instability wrought by Boko Haram, ripples that are felt way beyond the communities directly affected. And you have seen it here in Yola, where as a result of mass displacement caused by this conflict, the population has doubled. And like so many Nigerians, your university community has stepped up in heroic ways. Working together with local religious leaders, the university has provided food and other basic supplies for thousands of people. At one point, a university security guard, Kamai Tumba, was hosting some 50 members of his extended family. Now, if you all see Kamai around, you give him a high five from me, because that is extraordinary. 50. Students, including some in the audience today, began volunteering in the Malkohi camp, which I visited earlier today. One group of volunteers helped set up a virtual network to help displaced people find loved ones who had fled to other parts of the country. Some of these volunteers were in Malkohi on September 11, 2015, when a Boko Haram bombing there killed 7 people and wounded many more, including several students of this very university. It speaks to the courage and the compassion of AUN students that so many of you continue to volunteer in this camp to this very day. The second way we have to supplement the military response to Boko Haram is by tackling the long-standing poverty and inequality that existed long before this terrorist group emerged. The Northeast has the highest infant mortality rate in the country, with 1 death every 10 births. The male literacy rate is 18%. The female literacy rate, 15%. It is for that reason that the US government is supporting projects like Technology Enhanced Learning for All, TELA, here in Adamawa State. As some of you know, the TELA program aims to teach kids who are displaced, orphaned, homeless, or otherwise unable to go to school. It aims to teach them basic literacy and numeracy, primarily using radio broadcasts. The project has trained 750 facilitators from around the state, each of whom was given a radio, a set of workbooks, and other school supplies. Twice a week, the facilitators convene kids in their communities to hear a short radio broadcast, following along in their workbooks as they listen. Your university has been central to this. TELA's 750 facilitators were trained right here on your campus, and its curriculum was developed by a team led by today's moderator, Dr. Jacob. When, recently, a facilitator couldn't make it to host a class, the kids in his neighborhood went house to house until they found someone who would lend them a radio. And when the kids couldn't get a clear signal with that radio, they made an antenna out of a coat hanger. That is how hungry children are in your community to learn. And it is an inspiration for all of us who get to engage with you and witness this. It's amazing. This brings me to the third key ingredient in confronting the threat posed by Boko Haram, and that is building the inclusive, accountable, and rights-respecting institutions that will improve the foundation for good governance and economic growth. This is the long game in countering violent extremism, one that will require tackling what President Buhari has called the biggest monster of all. You know what that is? Corruption. It will also require embracing the vibrant civil society groups in the region and recognizing that their criticism, while difficult to hear, is stronger. And it will require knocking down the enduring barriers to opportunity faced by women and girls. Because as we know, societies where women enjoy equal rights and equal opportunities are, on average, more prosperous, healthier, more democratic, and more peaceful. The job of building inclusive communities cannot be left to government alone. You can build it right here in your community. You are. And this is the challenge I'd like to close my remarks with today. You can help repair and, where necessary, rebuild the fabric of your communities which have been ripped apart by violence and fear. This fear is understandable. How can you tell a young girl who was abducted and forced to choose between marrying a terrorist or being killed, how can you tell her not to be haunted by fear? How can you just... What she's going through is unimaginable. How can you tell a young boy who watched helplessly as his village was burnt down and was forced to choose between fighting Boko Haram and being killed, how can you tell him not to be consumed by hatred? These challenges are so daunting. The pain and the scars and the wounds and the trauma, so deep. We have seen how such fear can divide communities who have long lived side by side and worked together like these religious leaders. Consider the town of Michika in the north of this state, which used to have just a single market day. Since the town was liberated by Boko Haram last year, Michika's residents are so divided that residents now hold 2 market days, one for Christians on Saturdays and one for Muslims on Sundays. An arrangement that is worse for merchants and worse for consumers. Consider the abducted boys and girls who've been freed or who managed to escape, only to find that their own communities can treat them sometimes with suspicion and distrust, or turn them away, calling them a noba, a contagion. Those are the kinds of fears you can and must work together to dispel by rebuilding inclusive communities from the ground up. That is what the Adamawa Peace Initiative is doing by bringing together Christians and Muslim leaders, Christian and Muslim leaders in Yola, several of whom are here with us. They provide a living model of interfaith cooperation, and they diffuse tensions when they flare up. It is what your university is doing by welcoming 24 young women from Chibok who escaped Boko Haram, mentoring them in their studies, and showing that they should be embraced. They have so much to offer Nigeria, and having met with some of them, I can't even imagine what these girls are going to do and the difference they're going to make. They're going to be doctors and engineers and accountants. They're going to help change this country. Every student volunteer you have who goes out and helps rebuild the communal bonds that Boko Haram has sought to sever, whether it's by taking in displaced families or coming up with a lesson plan for kids, these volunteers, they're changing the world. They are a critical piece of the fight against Boko Haram. They are doing everything that is Boko Haram's opposite. And terrorism will be defeated. Act of kindness, act of reconciliation, act of trust, by act of kindness, act of reconciliation, act of trust. Your communities and your nations are looking to you to take up that work at an unimaginably challenging time. We will be with you, always. We will be with you to the very end, and the sky is the limit to the partnership between the American and the Nigerian people, and we will do everything in our power as a government to support your efforts to put this horrible chapter behind you.